Hello and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Altered Zigo here, and what we're going to be covering tonight is a unit matchup between the Terran and the Zerg Mutalisk. Now, as a Terran player, I have a lot of issues dealing with Zerg, actually. I know that a lot of Zerg players complain about Terran, but according to the latest numbers that Blizzard has released, actually, Zerg seems to have a slight advantage throughout the different leagues, other than Silver, I think, is the only one that favors the Terrans slightly. But essentially, one of the big popular builds right now for the Zerg player is this Mutaling build, where they go Baneling, they go Zergling, and they go Mutalisks. And basically, these are all relatively fast units, and they spread the Terran player pretty thin, and then on top of that, they can easily contain the Terran player. And the appropriate counter for that, or what is considered the most appropriate counter, is generally a mech build. And by that, I mean Hellions to deal with the Zergling. You're going to go Siege Tanks to help protect your front from any Baneling busts, and then, of course, the Mighty Thor. So what we're going to be talking about tonight is what units are effective against Mutalisk, because Mutalisk can be very hard to deal with because we don't have as Terran, we do not have a very fast anti-air unit. And so what we're going to be looking at is basically what's a cost-effective trade-off for these Mutas. And we're going to be using a few different units, Ghost, Marines, some Viking, and what we're testing on right now is this unit tester board that was developed by X-Dragon. It's something that I like to use occasionally if I'm having an issue with a particular unit, to kind of see if I can help with my micro in some way, or if I can find a different unit that works very effectively against another unit. So I highly recommend it for anyone that's interested in just testing out different combinations. But so, like I said, we're going to start with the Thor. As you can see, we don't have any upgrades. None of these units are going to have upgrades until later, and I'll mention that when we get to it. And a Thor, of course, costs 300 mineral, 200 gas. And so what we're going to do is we're going to bring 4 Mutas against it. And this is really the maximum that a Thor can handle, as we're going to see. So here we go. Mutas are coming in, and the Thor's range is going to kick in. Now, I did not magic box these, and that does make a difference. If you don't know what magic boxing is, I highly recommend, if you're a Zerg player, you go to StarCraft's channel and check it out, because he's a very good Zerg player, and he has some great videos. And as we can see, this Thor is just going to survive barely. Again, I didn't magic box. If I did, that Thor would have probably died right there. That 40 hit points, that's the difference, because essentially the splash damage from the Thor shot wouldn't be in effect. So sorry for that screw up. That was my fault. Again, I don't play Zerg, so you know, I'm just not used to that unit control or doing that all that often. But we're going to now move on. Again, that's a decent trade-off. We're talking about 300 mineral for us, 200 gas, versus 100 for each Muta, so 400 total. But now we're going to pull just one Muta, and we're going to pull him out here. And we're going to go to the old standby of the Terran army, the Marine. Now, I don't have stim packs here. Again, that would probably help, but it does end up reducing the unit's health to use that. And I do not have combat shields. That would give it an extra 10 hit points, and that would make a difference. But for base Marines, what we're talking about is 2 Marines versus 1 Muta. And we're going to see here, no magic boxing necessary this time, because just 1 unit. And it would help if I got a little bit of a spread so the shot didn't bounce around. That's always going to help. But as you can see, 2 Marines will take out a Muta, and you end up with 12 hit points. That seems pretty repeatable. I do that. I've done this test several times, and it seems to be always about about 12 or 16 hit points left. But the nice thing about this is, compared to some of the other matchups we're going to talk about, is this scales very nicely. So here we have 10 Marines, and we're going to bring in 5 Mutalisks. Where's my group of 5? There we go. So we have 5 Mutalisks versus these 10 Marines. And this time I'm going to get a little bit of a spread on them, so that they aren't going to quite get bounced around so much with that shot. And I know this isn't going to be practical a lot of times, because sometimes, you know, they come from a different angle and you've got to run and go get them. But if you can get a little bit of a spread, it will help their survivability. And we're going to send these 5 mutas, and we're going to aim them at the center. Now, I'm not going to group fire. Now, that again would help, because a lot of times these Marines will fire individually at these units. But as we can see here, the mutas are going down pretty quick. And it looks like we're going to have 5 Marines left. All are about around medium hit points. This one's kind of low. But, I mean, we just traded 250 minerals for 500 mineral, 500 gas. That's a trade I'll take every time. So, I'm going to pull these guys back. And another popular unit to use against mutas, although it's hard to do with this mech build, is the Viking. Now, the Viking, again, if you get that spread, it's very hard with them, because it'll help their survivability, but it's very hard because where they're actually positioned is this point down here. And so it can be very hard to, you know, get them to spread out. Thankfully, they don't have to worry about terrain when you're moving them, but if you're, like, turning or something like that, it can be hard to get them to do that. Now, again, we're going to bring in another 4 Mutalisks to go against our 4 Viking. And I'm going to target the center. Now, you're going to see the Viking fire first, because they have this longer range. And now you're going to see, this is something that's kind of annoying. The Viking are each going to fire at these units individually. And we're seeing a little bit of a shot skip here, but not too bad. But the Viking like to fire at units on a 1-to-1 ratio, and really that doesn't favor us. What we want to do is get them to group fire. So we're going to try this exercise once again, and we're going to try to get them to group up again, or to spread out a little bit more again. So we'll put him here. Well, there we go. And again, this is, I know, annoying to do if it's actually in-game and you may not have time, but it's a good idea to try to get a little bit of a spread. And what we're going to do is we're going to send another group of 4 Mutalisks at them. We'll target fire the center again. And because they have this long range, even the ones on the edge can fire without having to move. And you see, I'm going to target fire them, and we're going to actually move this guy back and around. And you can see there we get 3 Vikings left instead of the 2 like the first time. And in fact, this guy here has pretty much full health. He's has about half health. Now, the Viking are more expensive in mineral. They're 150 mineral, 75 gas. But they are cheaper in gas. It's not a bad trade-off, but if you're going with a mech build or something, it's probably going to be hard to get enough gas to get enough Viking. Because you really need to have that 1-to-1 ratio. Otherwise, you're going to have too many shots bouncing around. I mean, you can go maybe a few less, but it's not really ideal. So, the other unit that I wanted to try out was the Ghost. Now, most people do not build Ghost against Zerg. There are no shields to worry about, unlike the Protoss. And really, the only thing that you can EMP are Queens, and you can EMP Infestors. And really, that's not that big a deal. But what the Ghosts have, which is kind of nice, is the Sniper Round, which does 45 damage. And it ignores armor. So, we have 5 Ghosts here. And I'm going to hotkey them, because this is micro-intensive, because